This is Freshly Pressed. We're looking at the news stories making the headlines across the country. And as always, we love it when you're part of the conversation. The WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. You can also tweet at Smooth981. And we're streaming live on YouTube as well. So you can catch that live stream up on our channel, Smooth981. And let's get into it.
To kick things up this morning, we've got Bozimo and then also got Uade here with us. So, but we'll go to Uade this morning to help us pick up the stories. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, AB. Good morning, my president.
Great to see you guys. Happy New Year to everybody there.
And good morning, Omatseye. Good morning, Lagos. Happy New Year. And it's great to be back in the studio. Still talking about the new year, that would look like this is just a logical place to start up. So we begin with the Daily Trust newspaper where, Uade, you are looking at the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria's New Year address to the country. Well, Tinubu addresses Nigerians on the New Year. It will be his first New Year to address the people. So look at this message and tell us, what would you walk away with from this address and the tone, the choice of words? What would you say about it in times like this?
Listening to the address, I listened to it and I watched it. The tone was subtle. However, I've tried, back and forth. All he told us, in my own opinion, that what he told us was all the things that happened last year that still didn't jumpstart the economy. It says that we should still be patient, and all Nigerians should, which I think is truly the message that he was trying to pass on. That Nigerians should work together to build the nation. Defeating to become a nation. But at the end of the day, we can't continue to ask people, do you understand, to do ABC, and they are not doing the same thing. So we must walk the talk. You can't tell us tighten our belts and members of the political class are not doing the same. We can't see where expenditure is being cut. We can't see where all the things we hear in terms of 2024, in terms of revenue generation, more and more Nigerians are going to most likely be impoverished. Why do I say that? There's a fiscal policy on tax that is going to come to bear. These are corporations that are already screened on the ease of doing business. It's not easy. Fortunately, part of the Apex loan is coming, and we're expecting the last tranche by the end of this month. However, how long will that last us? How will we be able to stabilize the foreign exchange market, considering the fact that Nigeria is more of an import-dependent nation? How are you trying to? I heard the part of farmers, and I continue to ask the question: Are we doing farming in the Stone Age, or we're planning on how we can create a culture from farm to market? And every time I continue to repeat this, all I just hear is that we give farmers this, we give farmers that. And so when they finish farming, how does it get to the market? And we've seen the impact.
Just to jump in a bit here, to link up that story, looking at the speech here, talked about how 500,000 hectares of land will be cultivated in the year to grow maize, rice, wheat, and other staple food. And about 120,000 hectares of land in Jigawa State was done sometime last year for wheat. So these are some of those things. And aside from touching that, just a moment before you come in now, there was also the fact where he touched base with the boardrooms. He went from Broad Street and went down to Nebe, the creeks around where AB would be very familiar with, and other places. So at a time like this, where's the place of oratory and being able to carry people along with words as we've seen back in days where leaders would make speeches and that's enough as a rallying call to the citizens.
It makes a rallying call when the minute you finish, I can see the same kind of actions from you. It's easy, words are cheap, but put it into action. And these are the things that we're saying. 500,000 hectares, these 500,000 hectares of land has been there. And like you said, in agriculture, you want to grow wheat, and 120,000 has already been done. But the fact remains, we need to get to market. When it gets to market, at what cost is it going to get to market? At what time is it going to get to market? So it's not just about saying, it's about, let's see the action. One of the first things he declared as a national emergency was food security, issues relating to food. And this is almost 6 months after. And we can't feel the impact. Food inflation has hit its highest in the last 15 years, over 32%. So when you consider all these things, and it's like I always say, Nigeria is not about not having policies. It's about implementing those policies and having the people who have the will and the guts to implement them. And that for me will be my takeaway from this speech. Yes, subtle appealing to Nigerians. Are we going to see this action in 2024? I hope and I pray so.
I see, Abby, you want to chime in here on the president's speech if you want to do, but I just like you to also look at that part where in the speech, it was also extending an olive branch to the opponents, that's his challengers in the last election, saying, it's time, let's come together and build the country. Let's speak to us on your response to the president's speech.
I read the speech, and I'll say I just find a very big difference between whatever was being proposed in the speech and the actions that have heralded the presidency thus far. And in my next story, I'll go into more detail about that. But words can be, when effectively deployed, useful to rally the people. It was a president who said, we shall put a man on the moon. At the time when the arithmetic needed to calculate the way to the moon didn't exist. So words can be effective. But I'm sorry, actions, like Uade said, have to you have to transcend words to actions. And honestly, your actions should at least give me hope that your words mean something. I am not convinced. The speech was written, read, delivered, but to me, it was quite empty. That's me.
All right, thanks for letting us know your thoughts, AB. Let's go on to The Guardian. Femi Falana-San is calling on the NLC and Trade Union Congress and other civil society organizations to lead the Nigerian people in mass actions in a demand for provision of social amenities from the government. Now, he's urging them to ask for free healthcare, education, affordable houses, and things along those lines.
Now, it's a call that you could see, but the fact is this. There was a time in this same country where, on a monthly basis, the amounts of money accruing to each state and, most importantly, each local government were published. So you had an idea that your back in the woods local government was receiving 190 something billion naira each month. That process stopped. I don't know why. Because accountability is what we're talking about. In the past few months, since they said they removed subsidy, larger and larger amounts, I think it's only 1 month where less than 1 trillion was distributed across the country. And in the same time, poverty and misery has increased. I admit the naira is the third worst currency on the surface of planet Earth and amongst all the planets right now. But that said, naira is what we're supposed to be spending in Nigeria. So even if our importation has been hampered, local spending should have yielded better results. However, we are still being threatened with increased poverty, and in another story, increased food insecurity and all that. So it cannot be about the sum of money. As Falona has pointed out that yes, there seems to be more money in the system, but people are having difficulty getting to education. We'll talk about that. getting to affordable housing, getting transportation. We got this free buses thing that I'm hearing is actually working not so well. In some cases, people are not getting their refunds back. And then the increased national minimum wage. NLC, TUC have been going to meetings, coming out after cups of tea, and keep saying they are working. I have no problem working with the government, but what are the markers that the government is itself working with us? And listen, Falona shouldn't need to tell people. At this point, how do we hold those in elected offices accountable? That's the bottom line. If a local government says they got 200 billion, you cannot tell me that that 200 billion went only on salaries. What is local government doing about markets, sanitation? What is local government doing about minor streets? What is the local government doing about even mini grids? There's got to be a way where the people, with or without NLC, TUC, and Falana, go to the assorted local government offices. I think the first thing every Nigerian should do is get the name of your local government official, get the name of your ward official, wherever you actually live, and get their contact information. That should be the first thing you do this January. And then prepare to be able to join people on your street, on your block, and let you guys go in groups of 20 or 200 to the offices of local government and insist on meetings with the local government officials. Leave Tinubu first. Leave even your governor. Your local government got money. Don't ever forget that.
All right. Thank you, AB, for that. Yes, Uade.
Can I just quickly say something? Maybe unfortunately, we can do that. However, if the states or the state government sits on top of the local government governments, which is what happens regularly, then we can have these meetings from now to the year 3000, and we really wouldn't see anything. And that's why you will find out that local governments will tell you the only money they get is from salaries. That's why local government officials create all forms of levy that continue to impoverish Nigerians, impoverish market. Last time we spoke about the new football, and I was asking, what's mile 12? Maybe in Port Harcourt, what's mile 3 market? Diobu market? What are they? They're not hubs. And these are the realities. And you just mentioned that if local governments cannot act within the community, I don't know how you expect the community to improve.
So I just a quick retort. So you go to the local government office, you picket it until it can't function. Then either the local government chairman decides to resign his office or he stays away. And then at that point, with that energy, we move. Remember, we have 364 days left. We can do this in days at a time. Eventually, we might all have to move to the capital, but we got to start somewhere closer. That's all I'm saying. We can't wait effectively for Falona, NLC, TUC, because we are the ones in need.
All right, let us know what your thoughts are. 0809 440 981. You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. The conversation continues. Stay with us.
And you're listening to Smooth Breakfast Show. It is still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. AB still here and Uade. And we pick up our next paper. Uade, we return as you pick up this paper, which will be the Vanguard newspaper. But while you do it, you would also help us link up the story with the president's speech, said in paragraph, because the headline here says 2024 budget. President Tinubu already is saying that the ministries, MDAs will to provide monthly performance reports. Now, as you get get into the story, link that to one of the statements, the paragraphs where he talked about, I took an oath to serve this country and give my best at all times. I said in the past, no excuse for poor performance from any of my appointees will be good enough. It is the reason for the policy coordination, evaluation, and delivery unit in the presidency.
The last administration had the same policy. When you speak about performance, yes, I agree that you need to have some level of detail of information that comes to the president based on the KPI. But are we going to hear about this performance? And Nigerians going to be able to read or see on the pages of the website what parastatals are doing, what MDs are doing. If that is not going to be done, then how do I know what is determined as good performance or poor performance? And like Ebi said, governance is about transparency. You don't have to get it all right. But being transparent and people seeing that these things have been, you're putting in the efforts to do it, then people now start to say, oh, okay, but I saw this and I did this. It's the same way last year in the supplementary budget, there was the provision for a yacht. A yacht had been purchased, it had been delivered. So all we're just doing was just regularizing the payment. So if that's the same thing, then of what use will it be to us if you fire a minister based on what we cannot see, based on what you say is performance? But many times all those things do tell, because we would see as citizens whether this minister or this special assistant or this PAMSEC is actually doing what he or she is meant to be doing. But the fact remains that you must be transparent in governance. If you're going to start to do a performance evaluation, Nigerians also must be able to see what the basis of that performance evaluation is. If performance evaluation is going to be based on how much revenue you generate, then what's the impact of you generating that revenue on the people itself? If the impact of generating revenue is going to make more and more people impoverished and we're not getting the things that are required for us to be able to continue to do business or carry out your activity, what benefit is that? And that's the way I see it. So yes, it's good that you're going to have a monitoring team, you're going to have ministries and other agencies, give you a monthly performance report. What's the criteria for assessment? That's the question. If we all know the criteria for assessment, then even we as Nigerians can come back and tell you, I don't think he did well here. And then let the person now defend it. If we're not seeing on any website, or we're going to see what happened in January at the end of June, then
okay, before I let that rest, just also factor that in that the president has signed the 2024 appropriation bill into law. It was done, and we see a slight increase of capital expenditure over recurrent expenditure. And at the same time is also what you need for performance. So signing this budget into law first day of the year, do you see that as giving this administration time to get that performance going like you talked about now?
At least for me, I think President Buhari did maybe once or twice, but that's how it's meant to be. Budgets, first of all, you didn't submit the budget in time. Budgets are meant to have come in October. It came in December. The National Assembly, they worked overnight to ensure that the budget was signed before the end. Was passed before the end. And the president signed it into law yesterday. Yes, capital expenditure, 10 billion is moved up from about 8.3 that was proposed. Slight increase of 1.2 trillion. Why did that come to be? The National Assembly gives the benchmark for crude from exchange rate for crude from 750 to 800. That's really what pushed it up to 1.2 trillion. I don't think they really did change anything. And for now, because they've not fully approved the total amount of loan requested, what I do see is that there is going to be need to pass a supplementary budget to cover the amounts that you are going to borrow. So let's not between now and March, I expect that there will be an additional, because I think it's only 89% of the proposed bills that have been approved. They require some additional information. And once that comes into play, then you will see the then in-depth figure for. Sorry, one last thing. One of the reasons why I think the current expenditure went down is that the amount that was proposed as salary increase for civil servants was cut by 50% by the National Assembly.
All right, and let's go on to Daily Trust. Still on budget matters. We're talking about this one. The president has now signed the 28.78 trillion naira budget into law. AB?
Yes, it is interesting to me to see that it was signed with fanfare on the first of the year. You could say that's a good thing. There have been times in the past where it's been signed much later, but I've always held that, in my view, the date for signing a Nigerian budget should be on the first working day after the, the independence. And let me tell you why. Our construction season in Nigeria typically starts when the Harmattan comes. So by the time if we were to be able to sign it on the first working day after Independence Day, we would have the whole of October, November, December, January, February, March, maybe, to do a lot of capital projects if it's well approved. As it is now, you sign it in January, all sorts of people start distributing money. February, March, the rains have started. So I think we're actually missing a lot of value in not signing it earlier. But setting that aside, I now focused on the National Assembly. Uade mentioned that they worked late into the night to get it signed, and I can tell you why. The amount of money directed to the National Assembly would make me to stay awake. For the House of Reps, they get 78 billion. I want you to contrast that with the 5 billion that's given for student loans. For the Senate, they get 49 billion. Again, 5 billion for student loans for the entire Nigeria. National Assembly offices get 36 billion. You get 30 billion for general services, 20 billion for legislative aids, 15 billion for service-wide votes. Let me go down. There's 15 billion for National Assembly Hospital, and then you have 12 billion for the National Assembly Library Complex. And that is just a takeoff grant. Let me stop there because my late mother was a librarian. The best weeks, days, and years of my life were spent inside the library. So on a good day, I am an enthusiast anywhere you mention the word library. But I've said that our leaders are some of the least imaginative people on the planet of surface Earth. And I'll tell you why. Today, right there in the studio, there is almost no piece of information you cannot access with the phone in your hand. So information has become democratized and electronic. What are you doing with a 12 billion naira library complex takeoff grant and adding that to books for 3 billion for that library when you could, if possible, decide to make Nigeria's legislature be the most advanced electronic library on the surface of planet Earth with that money? How about we said we're going to set up the best, most secure, most updated electronic library that the world has ever seen with that money? Now you're just trying to put money, and I'm an architect. So on a good day, I want to be the one who has that design. But this is not about me. This is about imagination. You can see that the total amount that's dedicated to just the National Assembly is by far more than what is given to students who are supposed to be coming back to school in the next few days. And I'll say this, I've always held that loan proposal is bad. Instead of that, they should give grants to students. I will never stop saying that. So the National Assembly worked late into the night because they have multiple billions dedicated to them. And as I said about the budget speech, I don't see in the body language or body odor of governance that they actually have good plans for the people. Rather, it's again and always about themselves. I am not impressed.
Let's go on to the messages coming through. This is Shegun from WhatsApp. He says, states get more money, primary and secondary education, states controlled. Primary healthcare, mainly state controlled. State budgets, almost 70% borrowing and not scrutinized. Criticism of the federal government is in order, but we should always remember states and local governments. Jai says, it's unfortunate that our leaders no longer possess the ability to inspire the people with national speeches. In times past, leaders used the occasion of New Year's and Independence Day celebrations to make speeches that would calm tensions and give hopes of better days. God help us. Gilbert says, I strongly agree with Mr. AB. The development of Nigeria starts from the local government. The people should hold their respective local governments responsible and accountable. That is the magic of growth, even in the developed world. The civil parishes, counties, borough officials are held accountable.
And that leads us to the stand of the Punch newspaper, where it screams there, terror attacks on farmers will cause food shortage. The military is the one talking about this. Maybe. Does this surprise you?
You know, this is not rocket science. If people are unable to go to farm, if people go to the farms and they get themselves decapitated by terrorists, if people are sitting in their homes at night and their land is ravaged and their homes are burned, then they cannot go to farm. So terror attacks obviously can contribute to food shortage. However, since the military is saying this, they should be the ones talking about how they intend to prevent those terror attacks. Just over the Christmas season, we lost scores of Nigerians to terror attacks. I haven't heard, and I am not a security person, so you could say I am not supposed to hear the details of how they plan to stop it. But here's a simple solution. You know, drones, consumer drones, for 600,000, you can get a drone that can stay aloft for 30 minutes. In the military budget is the largest in Nigeria. I believe they can get much more sophisticated drones that can stay aloft at least for an hour or two. Get those drones, survey our country, especially in those terrorist-ridden areas, by air. Have a situation where you can direct ground troops to anywhere you see people amassing in those nasty ways. How can you hear that 200 people on motorcycles attacked a village? Was that a group of people that's hard to perceive? Make sure you can direct ground troops to slaughter anybody planning a terrorist attack. We heard that people were attacking people in Plateau State over 24, 48 hours. How could that be? I'm sorry. Our military has no excuses. There are tools, there are techniques, and they are the experts. I shouldn't be the one advising them on how to do it. There's even a Nigerian who has made something that can detect the concentration of carbon dioxide from people's breathing. You can attach that to the drone and ensure that whenever there are groups of people in places they're not supposed to be, you can go and investigate. When they're terrorists, terminate them. I'm not here to do what's that thing you do about human rights. When you're a terrorist, you should be terminated. Full stop. That's why there's terror in front of both names, terrorist and terminate. We need to kill terrorists, and I don't want to hear stories about human rights. If you're killing people, you have lost your right to live. So I am a non-specialist, and I can even come up with that hackneyed solution. I expect specialists to stop terrorism in the famous Buhari announced 3 months. Then we can talk about improved farming, improved economic life, and safety for the human beings, and avoid this food insecurity. It's very avoidable. Military, do your job.
All right, we'll take one message. This is from Babatunde, and he says, Happy New Year, Nigerians. Reading the president's speech yesterday, all I see is mere compliance to history. I charge every Nigerian to find personal ways out of poverty. All right, that is it for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thanks for your messages. Thank you for listening, and special thanks to our analysts, Uade and AB, for being on the show this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. You may agree, disagree. Hit me up at AB Bozimo on all platforms.
Thank you, AB. And that's it for Freshly Pressed. Just stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.